Hey everybody, my name is Diego Reyes and this is my presentation on greenhouse crop production. I'm going to walk through what we produced, how our work was organized, and then mostly focus on poinsettia production since that was the main crop that we tracked and managed throughout the semester. So our main priority this semester was producing a high quality poinsettia crop for the end of the semester plant sale, but we also managed a range of other ornamental and foliage crops at the same time. So to keep it realistic, we treated the greenhouse like a production system, meaning that we had to keep irrigation and dosatron fertigation reliable and do cultural practices like pinching and spacing, as well as monitoring crop progress regularly with plant size measurements and pour through and pH readings. And the main point of tracking all of that was to connect what we saw visually in the plants to measurable trends, and then also being able to use that to guide decisions as the crop moved from establishment to finishing. So, besides poinsettias, we actually had a pretty diverse crop list. We had multiple cultivars of poinsettias, but we also had crops like hosta, coreopsis, delosperma, leucanthemum, sedum, verbena, veronica, colocasia, euchera, and hellebores. Even though poinsettias were the main focus, managing all these different crops at once made it feel like a real greenhouse scenario where not managing everything at once, where everything having different needs. It's an interesting situation. So our work was organized through weekly bench rotations. Benches 1 through 4 were planned mainly for poinsettias, and then benches 5 through 8 were the miscellaneous benches. And the rotation really helped distribute labor and also exposed everyone to different crops and different bench conditions, which mattered when we were troubleshooting issues because it allowed for a variety of opinions. So this timeline basically in the semester is consisting of 3 phases, where phase 1 was establishment. So we potted rooted poinsettia cuttings, installed drip irrigation and emitters, set up dosatrons, and started fertilization using stock solution. And then part 2 of this process would be early production and building structure. So we filled empty spaces with miscellaneous crops as they came in. We pinched poinsettias to promote branching and a uniform shape. We applied marathon granules for preventative control and early pest pressure. And we also visited James' greenhouse, which helped connect what we were doing to a commercial production. And then phase 3 was where the production felt the most real, I guess you could say. We started weekly plant size measurements, regular pH and EC monitoring using pour through. We applied bonsai to keep the poinsettias compact and marketable. And then the last stretch was the cleanup and plant sale prep, like grooming, dead leaf removal, and organizing benches for presentation. So for irrigation, we use drip irrigation for individual pods, and part of the weekly routine was checking that the stakes were actually dripping in the pods and replacing missing emitters. Because consistency really matters. I mean, you need a consistent flow, because uneven flow can create dry pots and uneven growth. And for fertigation, fertilizer was injected through a dosatron with a concentrated stock solution. And poinsettias were intended to be on a higher feed program than other crops, and this is important later because we had a little issue with injector ratios. So, for this slide, it really summarizes, what our graphs show using a monthly average from September through November. In terms of growth, poinsettias increased pretty steadily from about 7.9 to 10.4 inches, and then from 10.4 to 13.8. And both widths increased slightly each month as well, basically mirroring each other. And pH stayed slightly, mostly stable in the target zone early, averaging about 6.3 to 6.4, but then it dropped to 5.8 in November, which is more so towards the low end of the target range that we were trying to hit. And EC being the biggest signal in the data, it averaged about 0.4 in September, but up to 1.4 in October, which is below ideal. But this lines up with that nutrition issue that we discovered in early October. And after that fix, you can see that it jumped to 3.0, which is slightly above the target range, and that kind of matches that stronger feeding program that we were trying to put on. Like I said, in early October, around October 6th, we had a situation where the data and crop appearance was kind of indicating underfeeding, and it's because the poinsettias were yellowing and the EC being so low. It shows that it was a delivery problem rather than just a plant variation. And when we checked the system, we found the dosatron injector ratio had been set incorrectly, so poinsettias were getting about 1/4 of the fertilizer they were supposed to receive. And once we corrected that injector setting, we also applied magnesium because we were noticing deficiency symptoms like yellowing around the edges. And after that, the plants really recovered in color and continued progressing. So growth control was a combination of good early structure and then managing, and really the pinching helped encourage branching and improve shape, and the bonsai was able to control height and keep the poinsettias looking good, and most of the plants stayed on track, but by the end we noticed that a few were way too big, and the best explanation for that was that they were missed during the bonsai application, and it's a good lesson that PGR applications really need to be systematic because a small miss does show up. Pest management was a very constant issue. The main pests we were dealing with were fungus gnats, whiteflies, thrips, and spider mites. And we ended up spraying fairly frequently because they just were able to rebound so quickly. It's a lot harder as the semester goes on because rapid growth and just the thick canopy of the plants makes it a lot easier for pests to hide and survive treatments and reproduce. But also the cooling pads that we have in the greenhouse stay wet, and those wet areas support algae and fungal gnats. So just overall, the most effective approach would be consistent scouting, recurring sprays when needed, and sanitation like removing dead tissue. That's just the best thing you can do. So the last stretch was all about finishing quality and presentation. We focused on removing dead leaves and flowers, adjusting spacing, organizing the greenhouse so plants were easier to access, and just at that point, the plant sale was basically the finish line, and all of our earlier production decisions were really showing now. But overall, a few things worked really well. I really enjoyed the bench rotation. I thought it helped flag problems early. It helped with just overall dispersing the workload, and it pinched. The pinching and the PGRs really did help manage the poinsettia size. I thought it was very nice. But if I were doing it again, I'd make 3 improvements. First, I'd really focus on getting a fertigation check routine in, because you need to verify that the injector ratio and everything like that is working, because the quicker you can catch those mistakes, it helps prevent simple errors. And secondly, I think that PGR applications really do need to be more systematic. You need to be more careful. It was a good learning experience with that because, a simple miss, that does show up. And third, I'd try to get ahead of those pests with a tighter sanitation regime and just extra attention all around. And yeah. But yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.